Yellowstone Season 3 begins with the emergence of a new threat, which comes in the form of Market Equities, a giant corporation that has bought all the land Dan Jenkins used to own before he passed away. Market Equities has big plans for this valley, so their feud with the Dutton family is the most important conflict in Season 3. We have to touch on the fallout from Season 2 before we get to Market Equities though, because the Duttons are in a tricky position after they raided the Montana Free Militia to rescue Tate and to teach the Beck brothers a lesson. That's why Governor Perry and the Attorney General meet with John. Jamie is there too as the family's lawyer, though his main job these days is to be a ranch hand. Jamie explains that the Duttons had evidence that the Becks used their planes to poison the Duttons' cow, and thus they got a couple of warrants to go after the Becks. Jamie adds that this is when they learned that the Becks also kidnapped Tate. We as the viewers know that this part is a lie. The Duttons had this knowledge beforehand, but the governor and the AG cannot know or prove that. So even though the Livestock Association acted in a lawful manner, John knows they'll have to give something up to cool things down in the public eye. So he decides to step down as the commissioner and take the blame for the raid on the militia. The government officials agree that that's a good plan, and John's reign as the commish is over. Meanwhile, Casey and Rip come across a few people as they're carrying out some ranch business. This group is led by a man by the name of Ellis Steele, who is representing Market Equities in Montana. They were undoubtedly discussing their plans for the valley before Casey and Rip saw them. We also learned that after taking over Jenkins' business, Market Equities sent a cease and desist order to Thomas Rainwater's new casino construction. That's because this was a joint venture between Jenkins and Rainwater until the reservation annexed the land. Market Equities went to a federal court because of this and managed to halt construction. Meanwhile, Beth learns about this new player in town during a meeting with her boss Bob Schwartz. It is revealed that Schwartz and Meyer has bought 17,000 acres around the Dutton Ranch now, and they will keep buying even more land, all of which will be in a conservation easement program. That way the government gives them money not to farm the land, which is how Schwartz and Meyer benefits from this deal with the Duttons. The Duttons, on the other hand, make sure that urbanization around the ranch is limited, which will keep property taxes stable. That's what this partnership is about. After finding out that Market Equities has bought Jenkins' land, Beth realizes that they're not going to stop there. They must have big plans in mind, which obviously threatens her family's ranch. On her way back home, she sees a man by the river, Rourke Morris, who Beth will spat with over the course of the season. Rourke's family owns the Cross Creek Ranch, which is about 5 miles removed from the Dutton Ranch, but that's not Rourke's actual business. He's a trader and he owns a lot of Market Equity stocks. He is in town to help out the company as they begin to enact their plans. Later on, Schwartz uses his contact at the Department of the Interior to gather some intel on these plans, and Beth comes up with her theory. She believes Market Equities will first build an airport, they'll then set up a ski resort, and eventually they'll form a new city around both. Beth figures that Rourke must have come up with this plan because he knows what's going on in Montana. There's no way Market Equities came up with this plan on their own, which is why she confronts Rourke. Rourke admits that he's on the board of Market Equities and that they're planning to build a massive airport. He's not trying to hide anything. In fact, he says that this plan will make all the ranchers around here so rich that they won't have to ranch anymore. However, there's one thing he doesn't understand. All the money in the world wouldn't prevent John from ranching. This is not a money-making operation for him. No, it's his family's legacy and a lifestyle. Beth's personal life is quite lively as well as she goes to Rip's new house one night and they hit it off. Things get more serious toward the middle of the season as they commit their future to each other. Beth reveals to Rip that she can't have children, but Rip is okay with that because he doesn't want another generation of him in this world, and Beth alone is enough for him. Now, the reason Beth can't have children is Jamie. Turns out Rip got Beth pregnant when they were teenagers and messing around. Beth went to Jamie for help and they went to the reservation for an abortion because they didn't want to be recognized in the city. Thing is though, the Indian clinic requires you to be sterilized if you get an abortion, and Jamie doesn't tell this to Beth, who goes through the procedure. Now, the fact that the doctors at the clinic didn't mention this to Beth doesn't make any sense. It's one of the most stupid mistakes in this show's history, so make of that what you will. Nonetheless, this storyline finally explains why Beth hates Jamie this much. Talking of Jamie, John decides that Jamie should succeed him as the livestock commissioner after Casey doesn't accept the role because he doesn't want to go into politics. Jamie promises his dad that he will never betray him again, so he is named the livestock commissioner. Jamie's first case involves two barrel racers who got their horses and rigs stolen. Randy Harper, who is the Sweetgrass County attorney, asks Jamie for help because horses are involved and they need to send a message to these punks, which is why Jamie agrees to send Agent Steve Hendon to help out. To teach the thieves a lesson, Hendon puts them in the trailer they stole, and he constantly accelerates and slams the brakes. This is supposed to mess them up, but it messes them up a bit too much as they die from their injuries and Hendon is arrested. Jamie has a chat with Hendon in jail, and they come up with a plan to get him out of this. The sheriff deputies were the ones who placed the thieves in the trailer, so Hendon's gonna say that the thieves were beaten up before they were loaded into the trailer. County Attorney Harper is furious and he wants Hendon to take the blame to make sure everybody else is in the clear, but Jamie can't let that happen. He's not gonna let his man rot in jail. Jamie reminds Harper that he wanted Jamie to rough up these thieves, so if anything comes out, it would be Harper's end too. It is mutually assured destruction. That's why they agree to tag the thieves as John Does, who were randomly found dead. It's unlikely that anybody will come looking for them because they are lowlives from out of state. This plan could work, but only if they can convince the barrel racers to go along with this story because they saw what happened. Jamie gets the barrel racer and her father to let this go because the man that laid their hands on her have been taken care of. The father agrees and Jamie's first crisis is averted. Jamie doesn't hold this position for long though, because the newly appointed Attorney General Cassidy Reed has become the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, which means that Montana needs a new AG. Governor Perry obviously has Jamie in mind. He would have become the AG if his father was okay with it back in season 1, but we all know how that turned out. Perry once again asks John to let Jamie become the AG because that's the only way to prevent market equities from building an airport right in the middle of the Yellowstone Dutton Ranch. You see, earlier, Ellis met with the governor to present their plan, which claimed that an airport and the following developments would bring the state up to $6 billion in tax revenue, and it would also create thousands of jobs. This would allow the state to use a certain power, eminent domain, which allows the state to purchase a portion of the Dutton Ranch even if John refuses the offer. The state has the power to forcefully buy your land if it is for public use, and an airport falls in that category. The land will be owned by the state and leased to market equities. This is their plan. So the governor argues that Jamie has to become the AG to maybe change the law and prevent this project from going through. Governor Perry can decide to block this project herself, but market equities would make sure that the next governor would be someone that would support them. With that in mind, John agrees to let Jamie become the interim AG, and Perry eventually convinces Casey to take over as the livestock commissioner, even though earlier in the season he said no. Now that Jamie can no longer be the commissioner though, Casey's ready to do whatever is best for the family. Most of these negotiations take place at the ranch because John and company have set up summer camp to watch over the cattle. They don't want another incident to wipe out their cows. This place is pretty good for Tate's well-being as he spends a lot of time in nature hanging out with John, Casey, and Monica. We could say that nature acts as Tate's medicine following his tragic kidnapping. This camp also strengthens John and Casey's relationship as they become closer than ever. Perry and John spend the night here too, and we should mention that Monica and Casey's romantic relationship is back to normal. John finds out about Rip and Beth at some point and is okay with it. He makes this known to them at the rodeo, which Jimmy is taking part in. Jimmy is distracted by a barrel racer by the name of Maya before his show, and Lloyd warns Jimmy about this distraction. Jimmy learns why soon afterwards as he's bucked off his horse and taken to a hospital on a stretcher. John had warned Jimmy about this, that he wouldn't be able to work if he got injured, but he did not listen. Nonetheless, John gives Jimmy yet another chance, paying his hospital bills and keeping him on the payroll on the condition that he stops rodeoing. Jimmy makes things official with Maya, and she, alongside a buckle bunny by the name of Laramie, start living in the bunkhouse. And Laramie starts flirting with Lloyd, who is 25 years older than her, so this storyline is pretty bad. Meanwhile, the romance between Rip and Beth produces some of the best moments of the season, culminating with Beth asking Rip to marry her, after she gets permission from John, of course. Rip says yes and asks Lloyd to become his best man at the wedding. The ranch hands get into a fight with a bunch of bikers from California who are trespassing on the Dutton ranch. They don't listen to the ranch hands' warnings and a fight breaks out, and Rip wrecks their motorcycles. The bikers come back at night to light the field on fire, but John and company are waiting for them. After bamboozling them, John makes them think that they're digging their own graves, but he stops them after a few hours and says he'll leave these ditches open, and if they ever return to Montana, this is where they'll be buried. With this whole ordeal and the fact that there's an airport about to be built on the ranch, John declares that his summer fun is over and he gets back to business. Talking of business, Casey and Jamie assume their new duties. Jamie makes sure to put a call in to the Sweetgrass County Attorney Harper to let him know that he's now the AG. This is a warning to Harper that he's dealing with an even more powerful figure now and that he should keep the Agent Hendon incident to himself. Jamie's rise to the AG's office is followed up by some awful developments in his personal life, starting with a clash between he and Beth. During a one-on-one conversation, Beth admits that their father made Jamie this way. He made Jamie fear his disapproval so much that became the only defining feature of Jamie, his father's approval. Beth believes this lack of any other purpose makes Jamie truly evil. Jamie responds by saying that he never should have helped her get the abortion when she was a teenager, and he doesn't accept any blame for the hysterectomy. It's clear from this encounter that things are never going to get better between the siblings, and soon afterwards, Beth finally tells John what Jamie has done. John understandably loses his temper while confronting Jamie, who tries to tell John that he was a kid too back then, when Beth asked for his help. This doesn't calm John down, who goes out of the room after Casey comes in and tries to console Jamie. Outside, realizing that his family is too broken to fix, John says all he's done is for nothing. If Jamie thought that was a blow, imagine his surprise when he finds out that John isn't his real dad. This comes to light when Jamie needs his birth certificate to ratify his appointment as the AG. The clerk says she never knew Jamie was adopted, and Jamie is stunned. His real dad is named Garrett Randall. He is still alive, while his mother Phyllis Mary has passed away. John and his wife hid this from Jamie for a good reason. His biological dad Garrett killed his wife, Jamie's real mother, and the Duttons adopted Jamie after this tragic event. Garrett went to prison, but he has been paroled now, and Jamie is determined to find out as much about Garrett as he can. That night, Jamie confronts John about what he's learned, and John argues that the man who murdered Jamie's birth mom might be his dad biologically, but the man that raised Jamie is his real father. John says he took Jamie under his wings and never treated him differently than his own kids. John doesn't try to prevent Jamie from looking for his biological dad, saying, quote, "You can look into his black friggin' heart. You can look into his eyes, Jamie, and you get to choose. You can choose who you call father," end quote. John then walks away after saying, "Good night, son." As we previously touched on, market equities isn't a problem only the Duttons are dealing with. The Broken Rock Reservations casino project is halted because of this mega corporation too. That's why Rainwater brings in a corporate fixer by the name of Angela Blue Thunder to get a handle on this situation. Even Rainwater's badass right-hand man Mo is wary of her, which tells you everything you need to know. You could say Angela is their version of Beth. Rainwater then has a meeting with John about market equities and they discuss their airport plan. John says that'll be taken care of because Jamie is the Attorney General now and he will not let the state invoke eminent domain on behalf of market equities. Rainwater argues that that's just a temporary solution. Market equities can revisit this plan a few years later once Governor Perry is forced out of office. In fact, Perry herself is still likely to support market equities because their plan would boost the state's economy considerably. Rainwater wants to team up with John to kick out these outsiders and suggests that Angela and Beth get together to cause some mischief. In the end, John agrees. Beth and Angela's meeting goes well. They're on the same page about playing dirty to inflict damage on market equities. In fact, that's what Beth has been doing for a while. She's been a thorn in Rourke and his company's side ever since she started shorting their stock. She's been driving their stock price down, which results in Rourke telling Beth that she is poking a bear. Beth responds with the following line, "You are the trailer park, I am the tornado." That said, Beth actually agrees with Rourke that the family should sell the ranch to acquire generational wealth, but what she wants is irrelevant. The money is not the point. This is John's legacy and he'll die to keep it intact. A decision Beth says she'll support until her father passes away. So how much are we talking about when we say generational wealth? Well, around about $500 million for 50,000 acres. That's how much land is needed for the airport project. That's just a minuscule portion of the ranch because it is mentioned in season 1 that this is the biggest ranch in the US. The biggest one in the real world, as far as I know, is the King Ranch in Texas, which spans over 800,000 acres. So if the Dutton Ranch is bigger than that one, the land needed for the airport is less than 6% of the Dutton Ranch's land. This makes it obvious that the Duttons can become multi-billionaires if they caved in. We learn about this $500 million offer during a scene involving the market equity CEO Willa Hayes. She is in town to meet with Jamie to discuss the project and ask him to invoke eminent domain. Jamie manages to stall her for now but tells Casey about the offer. Jamie doesn't go to John or Beth because they are practically estranged. Casey takes the offer to Beth, who in turn lets John know about it. She says Jamie won't be involved in the eminent domain case because he has a conflict of interest. So the state and the governor are willing to invoke that clause to buy the land from the Duttons forcefully. The Duttons will spend years in court spending an insane amount of money just to ultimately have to sell it for peanuts. Then the development of the area will make the property taxes unpayable and they'll lose everything they have for nearly nothing in 5 or so years. This is Beth's analysis. But for John, this isn't about reason. It's not about pride either. It's about a promise he made to his father to fight with everything he's got to keep the ranch intact. He knows he might lose it eventually, but he's not gonna be the one selling it. He's not gonna break his promise. The war between market equities and Schwartz and Meyer heats up as Beth and Angela continue to sink their enemy's stock price. However, market equities is the bigger fish, and their CEO, Willa, eventually manages to tank Schwartz and Meyer's stock price, and they take over Schwartz and Meyer. Willa greets Beth in her office the next day and fires Beth. Sure, Beth has cost them a lot of money, but now they own Schwartz and Meyer, which means they own the land around the Dutton Ranch that's been sitting on the conservation easement program. There's a new player in town by the name of Wade Morrow who is looking after a bunch of buffaloes for Jenkins's resort, which of course now belongs to market equities. The buffaloes are a tourist attraction, but they're causing the Dutton Ranch a fair few problems because they are tearing fences. We later learn that Wade used to work for John and he, quote, stole the one thing a cowboy doesn't steal, end quote. John tells Wade at a diner that he'll be getting that thing back. Things escalate when Wade and his son attack Colby and a new female ranch hand by the name of Teeter by the river. Wade uses his horse and his rope to beat the crap out of Colby and Teeter, who barely survive. After they are eventually found, Casey and Rip decide they can't let this go, so they pack up and go after Wade and his son. There's a little twist here as well. Rip and Lloyd come across Walker before this. Walker was spared by Casey on the condition that he would never step foot in Montana ever again. Casey was supposed to shoot him at the infamous train station but let him go in exchange for this promise. Well, apparently, Walker hasn't kept his word, so Rip and Lloyd kidnap him and take him back to the ranch. Casey is still not in favor of killing Walker. Instead, they agree to make him do something that will prevent him from talking, something to hold over his head. And I guess it's his lucky day because there's this Wade Morrow problem they've got to take care of, and Walker will be a part of the quote-unquote solution. Before we get to the revenge part, we find out that Wade has been working directly with Rourke, who has been trying to provoke the Duttons to cause them to do something that will get them in trouble. John knows that Wade is being used by someone, so the ranch hands will have to be discreet as they go to the train station. John tells Rip that Wade has something that belongs to him and he'd like it back. John is talking about a brand here. Wade Morrow used to be a branded man, just like Lloyd and Rip. Wade was a part of this mafia-like structure, but then he left. That in and of itself is unforgivable for John, and add to that the fact that he had the audacity to come back and mess with the Duttons. Wade's future is looking bleak. Rip, Lloyd, Walker and a bunch of other ranch hands manage to capture Wade, and his son is killed during the pursuit. Wade starts talking as he is tied to a noose, revealing that he's been working for Rourke Morris. Walker rips off Wade's brand to prove himself to Rip. They kill Wade and Walker and Lloyd take the bodies to the train station to toss them off. Meanwhile, Colby, Teeter and Ryan get branded, as that is the cost of seeking and getting revenge. They all belong to the ranch now. Jamie confronts his biological father at the end of the season, who says he and Jamie's mother did a lot of drugs back in the day, and he ended up killing her because she was selling her body for drugs. Jamie looks like he realizes coming here was a mistake, but then he can't contain his curiosity. He would like to know his father to gain knowledge about himself. Garrett claims he took Jamie's mother's life to protect Jamie because she wasn't taking care of Jamie. She was busy getting it on with strangers while baby Jamie was famished and thirsty, so one day Jamie sucked on a drug pipe and that incident caused Garrett to kill her. We don't actually know if this is true because there isn't anything to corroborate Garrett's story. They move on to another topic, the fact that Jamie is estranged from the Duttons. Jamie believes he will lose everything. He wanted to run the ranch one day, but that no longer seems possible. So Garrett says, you gotta kill the king to take over the empire. Jamie claims he's not a killer, but it takes one to know one, so Garrett sees something in his son's eyes that makes him realize his son has killed before. And he's right, Jamie killed a journalist in season 2. Jamie's next stop is the AG's office, because there's a meeting there between Market Equities, the Duttons, and the Broken Rock Reservation about the airport and the future of Montana. We've got Jamie, Governor Perry, Willa, Rourke, some other Market Equities goons, Rainwater, Angela, John, and Beth in attendance. As the meeting begins, Willa learns she's on the news because of a workplace harassment complaint, which was undoubtedly Beth's doing. This doesn't bode well for Willa's future, because companies like these take such claims seriously, so she gets out of the room to get a handle on the situation while Rourke takes over as the company's representative. Later on, we hear on the news that Willa has been placed on leave. Back to the meeting, Rourke goes on about the usual talking points, how the airport will bring in more tax revenue and jobs, and he points to the portion of the ranch they would like to build their airport on. This is when Jamie steps in, saying that he is authorized to make any deals concerning the ranch because he still has power of attorney. Beth claims she's got power of attorney, but Jamie tells her she's made a mistake. Beth filed the transfer of power from Jamie to her in Utah, and that doesn't count because Montana doesn't recognize power of attorney filings from other states, which basically means that Jamie is still the ranch's attorney, and he's authorized to act on behalf of the ranch. With that in mind, Jamie authorizes the sale of that land, which infuriates John. Jamie tries to explain the situation to his father, saying that he will lose the land to the state via eminent domain if he doesn't sell now, so why not take the money when you are guaranteed to lose? John argues that Jamie can stop this eminent domain ordeal, but Jamie claims it's out of his hands, because Governor Perry has made the decision to go through with the plan, and Jamie has to go along with her. John is perplexed because another one of his allies has turned her back on him. Angela and Rainwater chime in with the announcement of their upcoming class action lawsuit, which will claim that the airport's environmental impact on both the native land and the national park land will be too destructive to ignore. Rainwater asks John to join them in this venture, but John doesn't make a decision. Things also heat up between John and Rourke, with John warning Rourke that he will teach him the rules. John knows at this point that Rourke hired Wade Morrow to mess with the Duttons, and Rourke will be taken care of at some point in the future because he went after the ranch hand. After everyone leaves, Perry consoles Jamie, arguing that John will eventually understand why Jamie has done what he's done. He did it for John, for his family. But Jamie admits he didn't do it for John. He only thinks of himself from now on. Let's talk about Jimmy real quick and get him out of the way. His barrel racer girlfriend Maya makes him feel bad about wearing a brand and tells him that he belongs to John Dutton. He's basically John's cattle, and he can't even rodeo because John tells him not to. Apparently, if Jimmy wants to stay with Maya, he has to be himself. And our love-struck cowboy wannabe Jimmy gets on a horse to practice and falls down. He looks lifeless and we don't know if he's gonna make it out alive. In the meantime, Casey gets visited by 3 different chairmen of the Stock Growers Association. They want Casey to run for governor 2 years from now because of his short and sweet tenure as the livestock commissioner. And even though Casey acts like he doesn't want this, you can clearly see that he actually does. Casey had a conversation with Monica shortly before this about how fighting for people instead of a thing makes him happy, and becoming the governor and fighting for the people of Montana would make him even happier. So we might see Casey running for governor in the future. Meanwhile, Rip has his mother's grave dug up, and he gets a ring to give it to Beth. Yes, you're right, that's weird. Rip talks to his mother and tells her that he's gonna spend the rest of his life with Beth. Talking of Beth, because of what she did to Willa and the overall chaos she caused for this land deal, Willa wants Rourke to treat this like an oil deal in Yemen. Angela wants Thomas to do the same thing. She wants him to wage war against John and take their land back. And there's of course Jamie, whose biological father wants him to kill the king, John. So that is 3 people, Thomas, Jamie, and Rourke, urged by Angela, Willa, and Garrett to go after the Duttons, and one of them does. Beth is gathering her things at the Schwartz and Meyer office, and her assistant finds a package. There's a box inside the box, and boom goes the dynamite. Casey gets attacked by gunmen in his office, while John gets ambushed by a van as he is changing the tire of a lady in need. John lives for now, but he's got a fair few wounds. After seeing that the phone he hates prevented a bullet from piercing through his heart, he says, quote, "Doesn't that freaking figure?" End quote. And last but not least, there's Rip, who can't reach anyone. He tries to get in touch with Jamie, but Jamie tells Rip that he shouldn't call him anymore. Rip gets out of his car to take care of a wounded horse, which he finds weird, and he gets even more suspicious when he sees a bunch of vultures circling something down the road. Season 3 comes to an end as he heads out to investigate. I know the season 3 recap was a bit late, so sorry for that. I couldn't finish it before season 4 kicked off, but nonetheless I hope it was useful and you enjoyed it. If you did, leave your comments down below, like the video and subscribe for more movie reviews and TV show breakdowns. That's it for now, take care and see you in the next video.